Crosby. He's probably just going to talk about his teammates and how well they played and things like that, kind of toe that line. They're just two very different players, and so it's kind of unfair to compare them. And but when Evgeny Malkin is on, he's on, and he's just kind of a freak of nature, and that's what he is right now. And this is all coming after not participating in training camp for the most part. He didn't play in a single preseason game. I've kind of been saying this lately that kind of going back to football again because that's my thing, that he's kind of like a quarterback who doesn't really need to participate in preseason, and then he comes out in week one and throws for 300 yards like it's nothing. Now, there are going to be periods when he does kind of let things creep in a little bit, and he's kind of he goes through these stretches where nothing is really going on with him, and he's not really producing that much. But then something happens, and he sparks, and when he is on, like I said, when he's on, and he might be the best player on the team when he is absolutely on. Sidney Crosby is the most consistently great player in the NHL. He is the best player in the world. There are very few times that he drops and that there are down periods for Sidney Crosby, and he can take it to a level that most people can't reach. But when Evgeny Malkin is playing at his peak, he might be the best player on the team when he's playing at his peak, but he's not quite as consistent as Sidney Crosby. He can kind of go through lulls where Crosby doesn't really have those lulls as much.
Yeah, certainly two different players, and Pittsburgh very lucky to have both of them on the roster. Wes, what is Robert Bertuzzo getting back into the lineup tonight for Oli Mata? Obviously, now that Mata is going to miss about 4 weeks after undergoing the surgery. What were your thoughts on him, who's paired with Christian Ehrhoff? And that may have come a little bit of a surprise to some people, but didn't seem like Mike Johnson wanted to break up the pairing of Rob Scuderi and Simone Dupré because they've been pretty decent. What were your thoughts of Bertuzzo? I mean, it's crazy that this was the first time this season that a new player had dressed the same 20 players had dressed for the first 10 games of the season. I mean, that's unheard of for the Penguins considering their injury history.
Yeah, and that's kind of going back to the thing of them kind of being fortunate with the few injuries that they've had, and also, I mean, they've been playing so well that there's really no reason to even try to switch anything up. Pretty much their lineup has been virtually the same except for moving Malkin back to center and then Como up to the second line and everything like that. But it's been relatively the same lineup almost throughout the entire season so far. But yeah, so tonight, Robert Bertuzzo kind of got healthy and came back into the lineup at the perfect time, just because Mata is going to be out for this approximate month. So you needed that body in there. I guess, it can be kind of surprising to see him paired next to Ehrhoff. I'm not really sure how that's going to end up working out. But yeah, the other two pairings are going so well that you don't really want to break them up. It's kind of a, if something's not broke, you don't fix it type thing. So, Mata goes out, you kind of slip Bertuzzo in there. Of course, Mata was playing next to Crystal Tang, but you don't really want to mess with Dupré and Scuderi just because Scuderi was he's coming off of a down year, and then Dupré, we all know his history. You kind of want to have him play in a familiar pairing where he's playing really well, just because he's kind of had an up and down career, and you don't really want to mess with it when he kind of finally has it going and he's feeling comfortable. You just want to ride that. So I kind of agree with not breaking those two up. And as far as Robert Bertuzzo, he kind of brings something that I think most of the other defensemen don't bring to the ice, and that's a little bit more grit, a little bit more grime, and that's something that the Penguins can always use. Even when Oli Mata comes back, I think that's when it's going to be interesting to see what happens is when, and this is, of course, assuming that no other player goes down in the meantime, that once Mata comes back and they have that complement of defensemen, exactly what they do. Do you kind of slot in Bertuzzo and Dupré depending on the matchups and the game, and who you think fits better for that particular game, kind of like they would do with Bertuzzo and Derek England? What exactly do you do with that when you do have a full complement of healthy defensemen. That's when it's going to be interesting. Tonight, you can't really take that much from it. It's his first game back. I mean, it's good that I didn't really, kind of pay attention to him that much because, it's kind of like a thing where if you don't notice a guy, that means he's doing relatively well because he didn't make any mistakes. So that's a good thing for him. I don't think that he really made any mistakes tonight. It was his first game back, so I think it's a good start, and we'll kind of see. He's going to get a lot of opportunities here in the next 4 weeks, so we'll see how it works out for him.
And Thomas Greiss getting his second start of the season, getting his first win in a Penguins uniform, made 34 saves, and towards the end there, it reminded me of the Detroit game where, they kind of collapsed there in the final 2 minutes. And then, luckily tonight, the Penguins kind of got that break where it looked like that puck was in the net or was past the goal line. And then, the ref said that you couldn't review it because there was goaltender interference. So a little bit of a break there, but Thomas Greiss did make some great saves. He did in Detroit too, and finally got the win, his first win with the Penguins tonight. So that was nice to see him get his first win, because I think he's done pretty solid, especially, he hasn't played since, I think it was, October 23rd, I think. So it's been a long time since he's been in the net, but I thought he looked pretty well for not playing that much this year yet.
Yeah, I thought so too, and he looked really well. He played really well in the preseason as well. But yeah, I mean, especially coming off of this is only a second start of the season, and you kind of realize that his first start was just something that you kind of want to forget immediately, and you probably, it's kind of like one of those things where if Marc-Andre Fleury was in that for that game and that happened to him, he would probably immediately want to get back out there on the ice and kind of get over it. Well, Thomas Greiss has kind of been sitting there since that Detroit game and probably hoping for an opportunity to get over it. So he finally got that tonight. It did look for a second like it was going to happen all over again. And yeah, there was that call of, goalie interference when, a forward got shoved on top of him and then didn't really, kind of took his time getting off of him, and kind of pinned him down there. So it can kind of go either way. And that helped the Penguins out a bit and kind of secured the win for them there. But you always want, he's a really good backup goalie, and you kind of want that guy to get comfortable there, especially when it's his first time with the team and everything. And, he hasn't got that much time out there just because Marc-Andre Fleury's been playing so well and they've just been riding him, which I'm not necessarily a huge fan of just because of Fleury's history of, in the playoffs he played really well last year. But I think a lot of his history is because the Penguins have kind of rode him through the regular season so much that it kind of tires him out sometimes. And I think it, would help when you have a decent backup goalie to kind of take advantage of that and take the load off of your starter just a little bit so that he kind of has his wheels going when the time comes to really win games in April, May. And so I think you can probably give Greiss a little bit more time than the Penguins have. But it's great that he got a win there tonight. They needed it. He needed it. And especially at the beginning of this road trip, you want to, win here in Minnesota when you have two games, in Winnipeg and Buffalo that you should win. You don't want to have this, momentum snapped, and the Penguins were able to avoid that tonight.
Wes, who's the best team in the NHL right now?
I mean, it would take a lot for me, just because I see the Penguins so much, and I've seen how they play, and I've seen how they prepare to kind of not say that the Penguins aren't playing the best hockey right now. But at the same time, if you're asking me who I would expect to win the championship, I'm kind of a guy that's, I'm a wrestling guy. So it's kind of like the Ric Flair thing where, you to be the man, you have to beat the man. And the Penguins have beaten exactly. The Penguins have beaten the Kings in the regular season, but until someone knocks them out of the playoffs, I'm just going to kind of say that the Los Angeles Kings are the champs and that they're the best team. I think that they're so deep They have 4 lines that can go out there and score. Of course, they have that 70s line, but they have such a deep complement of players there, and they also have Jonathan Quick in net. It's kind of hard to say that they're not the best team in the NHL. They're just built so well from top to bottom. And even when they were playing here in Pittsburgh, not to take anything away from the Penguins, they played one heck of a game. I mean, they took it to the Los Angeles Kings, but they didn't have Kopitar and they didn't have Gaborik. So I would like to see a healthy Penguins team versus a healthy Kings team, and see who would win that.
I'm kind of intrigued by who is the worst team in the National Hockey League right now, because it seems like it's a different team every night. Obviously, the Buffalo Sabres are kind of the front runner for all of this, but the Carolina Hurricanes throwing it all away tonight, beating the Columbus Blue Jackets and leapfrogging them in the standings. I mean, what are they thinking? But here's a question for you, Wes. I'm going to put you on the spot, and this is the last one for me. This is kind of a fun trivia question I just kind of stumbled upon, and I'm kind of shocked by the answer. There are 2 teams in the National Hockey League that only have 2 regulation losses this season. One is the Pittsburgh Penguins. Do you know the other one?
I'm just going to take a stab at it, simply because I don't really know what Nashville has done over the past couple weeks since they lost to the Penguins, but I'm just going to say the Predators, since I knew that they were the last team not to have a regulation loss.
It does start with a P.
Yeah, that's not a bad guess, and that's one that I probably would have been in my head if I were guessing this. But the answer is the Florida Panthers.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that one coming.
who are 4-2-4 on this regular season.
Wow. All right. Well, that's I'm kind of a guy who says that an overtime loss is still a loss. So it's kind of, I guess that's why I didn't really realize that. But yeah, that's surprising that they've kind of earned a point, at least in that many games. I mean, kudos to them.
It's like the Devils a couple years back when they made the Stanley Cup Finals. They've had so many of those overtime losses that they ended up still squeaking in the playoffs.
That's exactly right.
Maybe that happens in Florida. Maybe not. Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not.
For a team that has always been strong in the net with the New Jersey Devils, how do they suck in shootouts and overtime as much as they do?
Yeah, that was something else. I forget how long that drought was before they scored and won the other night. But that was quite the drought that the Devils were on without a shootout win. And it is kind of funny when you think of, they had Martin Brodeur and everything, and like how could you not win a shootout when you have maybe the greatest goalie of all time before he left there. So it's surprising that they wouldn't have been able to win a shootout 1-0 throughout that long stretch that they had there.
Well, of course, Wes, the answer is because there's no neutral zone trap in shootout. That's what that's what the naysayers of the Roman Berger camp would say.
That is true. But I mean, really, how could you not won 1-0 shootout throughout that whole thing? All you have to do is make 3 saves and score 1 goal in your first 3 shooters. That's all you have to do. And how could you not do that just one time? And so I thought it was funny to see Twitter kind of react when they did win in a shootout, to just kind of see, well, the New Jersey Devils won the Stanley Cup. Oh, I mean, they just won a shootout. I thought that was very comical. I chuckled myself when I saw that when I was sitting in the Consol media room. But yeah, I mean, I really can't fathom not being able to win 1 shootout just by scoring 1 goal and then stopping 3 straight shooters. I don't know how you can't do that.
Carolina's won 3 straight, beating Columbus, who's lost, 6 in a row for Columbus? I know they have a lot of injuries, but certainly the Penguins didn't use that excuse. I mean, they're going through some rough times down there in Columbus.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of a shame. I went to cover the Game 6 last year, the clinching game for the Penguins in Columbus, and that's a fun hockey city, and it's really kind of embraced the Blue Jackets, and I think it could be a lot of fun if they did kind of maintain a a decent team there, that kind of local rivalry, if that could really manifest